maybe we should do some introductions, just so people know kind of where you are in the state, because that might play a role in what's happening at your institution and so that kind of thing. So why don't we do that while we wait for the last two stragglers to fill in the poll. So I'll introduce myself, and then I'm just going to point to people where they are on my square. That's usually the easiest way to do it. So I'm Dan Kernler. I teach at Elgin Community College, and I am currently the IMAC president. That feels weird. Cindy, why don't you introduce yourself next?
I'm Cindy Johnson. I teach at Heartland Community College in Bloomington Normal. Been
Tony?
here for a while.
Yeah, thanks for helping me here. I appreciate it too, Cindy. Thank you. Tony?
Hey, Tony Paris. I'm at Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg.
Chris?
Chris Riola. I am at Moraine Valley Community College in Palos Hills, which is kind of a southwest suburban Chicago, and I'm the IMAC membership chair.
Chalice?
I am Chalice Dieterding. I teach at Elgin Community College with Dan. We've actually gotten to see each other this semester.
Yeah,
We're both
in
on
person.
campus.
Yes.
In person.
We had like a conversation the other day. It was amazing.
Yep. So,
Kathleen?
Hi all. I teach part-time at Rock Valley. I used to teach full-time, and I'm full-time running my business, Almy Education.
Excellent. Kimberly?
Kimberly Polly from Harper College in Palatine, Illinois. And I'm going to turn my camera off because this is the first chance I've gotten all day to eat something, and you don't want to see that. So I'll be back on.
Yeah. Hey, I'm used to staring at black squares all day anyway, so it's fine.
And it's like, Dan's going to make us introduce myself. I'm like, I got my whole face full of food right now. Thanks, Dan.
Yep, that's how we roll. Olga?
Actually, same on my side. I'm going to grab some lunch and listen carefully. Oakton Community College.
Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter, and I teach at Carl Sandburg College, and I will also be turning off my camera. So
that's totally fine. Yeah, no problem at all. Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine Mouchon, and I'm from Elgin Community College, where Dan and Chalice are as well. And I am traveling, so I have lovely motel curtains, a lovely motel chair. So, but I'll be a listener today too. Thank you.
That sounds good.
Nice to see everybody. Nice to see everybody.
It is. It is. Thank you so much for coming. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share the results from our informal poll. Nobody had anything else to add, so there's nothing in the chat. Nobody checked that option. So we'll just roll with what we have. And so it looks like the first topic here is about online instruction. I actually put this one in there because I'm curious. I brought up our spring schedule, and Chalice can help here too. It feels like there's still more online than usual, but it's pretty similar. Right?
Very few more online.
Yeah.
Than we had before. Our dean really wanted to go back.
Yep. There's like Trig, which wasn't online before, was it? And that's it. There's more hybrid.
Yes.
So there's hybrid calc. There's no online calc. So I don't know, anybody else, like what is happening? So it looks like ECC, at least in our division, is really trying to go back to kind of pre-pandemic online course levels. There isn't like this expectation like, hey, you can teach online now. Let's do all these online.
Yeah, at Moraine.
Sorry, Chris. We got some people who just joined us. Welcome, Kara and Jennifer. We did some introductions earlier, but I don't know if you want to do a quick hello and say where you're from, where you teach.
Sure. I'm Kara O'Brien. I'm at ICC near Peoria, Illinois.
Thanks for joining us. Jennifer, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I'm the idiot who opened up the garage door without realizing that I wasn't muted. I'm over at Oakton Community College.
All right, thanks for joining us. Okay, sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to
interrupt. No, that's totally cool.
Actually, I did mean to interrupt you, but I'm sorry that I had to interrupt you.
So over at Moraine, we're kind of unique. We have two separate, we have a specialized developmental ed department, which I'm in, and then our transfer level courses are in like the science and business division. But in developmental, we're pretty much going back to pre-pandemic offerings for online, just a couple sections of each course, because those students just if they're taking the course for the right reasons, I feel like they do okay. But the student who just takes an online course just because in Dev Ed never does well, at least in my experience. And it seems like they're offering maybe like 1 to 2 extra sections per course online than they normally would have. Amy Madden definitely could speak to that more, but since she's not here, I'll kind of say it seems like we're offering maybe 1 to 2 extra sections online now than we were pre-pandemic, but that's partially to suit faculty wants, and but they're really trying to get back to BC before COVID.
Right. How's everybody else feel? Like, anyone else want to chime in? You can raise your hand in Zoom, or just like I'll try to. Yeah, Tony, I see your physical hand raised. So go ahead.
We definitely have more. Part of it was math. We didn't really have much online to begin with. We had a couple developmental. We had like our QL class basically, and that was about it. But since everyone online and we're still expectations and students still not sure, our basic stats is online. We have a college algebra online. A couple instructors, adjunct that are a little leery of coming back are staying online this semester for math. And what's probably going to happen going forward is something like the basic stats will probably keep an online class of some kind. Our finite may stay online just because we have low numbers on it. So we're definitely going to end up with some more stuff or more offerings online after this, just because math-wise we didn't have a lot.
Sure.
But trying to get back to as many classes in classroom, like Calc, I'm trying to go back. Trig, I had to do kind of a weird thing. We didn't have enough space in the room because of restrictions. So we added a virtual section. So I have a bunch of students in the room and then several students that come online live synchronously at the same time because we didn't have seats for them, but we couldn't create another in-class trig section.
Anybody else want to chime in with what's going on at your institution? Go ahead, Kimberly.
Oh, I didn't realize I wasn't on mute that whole time. At least I didn't raise a garage door or anything, I guess. And my dogs weren't barking, thank goodness.
Jeez, thank goodness.
So pre-pandemic, Harper had about 10% of our courses online. And it's kind of funny because pre-pandemic, there was a lot of pressure from our board to get more things online. And in particular, to get complete programs online. So not just a class here and a class there that they could kind of hodgepodge together, but like complete programs intentionally online and offered in the proper order that they could do them. And now there's all this pressure to get back.
Right.
So Harper, for this semester, we were about 50% of our classes had some component on campus. Very, very few fully face-to-face classes. They were almost all blended classes. So like all of our lab classes, lecture remained online and only the hands-on component came back. Math classes were blended classes. Still staying at the 6-foot distancing, our classrooms at, the lecture halls and things that normally would seat 75 with 6-foot distancing seat 19. So it's not fiscally responsible to put things back. Like our math classrooms that normally hold 32 right now hold 12. And so it's just not physically responsible to hold sections of 12 when we can keep them online at 25. So
are you going to do 12 in the spring too, Kimberly?
So yeah, we're being told to still hold at the 6-foot distancing for spring right now. So
we are getting a lot of pressure to not do that.
And so we have like maximally filled our lecture halls with things so that we can have things closer to 19, 20, or like our really big lecture hall that we can get like 30 students in at one time, 6-foot distance. But that means having them all blended so that we can get twice as many in those spaces. The other thing though, is we've also sent out a lot of surveys to our students, and those are the modalities they actually prefer right now. Kind of like we've kind of got used to having the flexibility of not having to deal with traffic to and from and daycare issues and car won't start in the middle of the winter issue, or I missed my bus issue or something that so I think going forward, that's just where it's going to be. The other thing is in Illinois, there is a demographic cliff right now with students from the high schools. And so our target audience for all of us is going to have to be the adult student, and adult students want flexibility and shorter classes. So 8 weeks blended online, very different than, the 16-week fully face-to-face things that a lot of our schedules had.
I think your point about the survey is a really good one too. Like, I don't know that ECC, that Elgin did that about like, okay, moving forward, what should we plan? That was really interesting. It's a good point. Chris, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, just kind of, since we have a good representation of different areas, how did your students, if given a choice, online, traditional, hybrid, what did your students tend to pick? Because speaking like the reason I'm asking that is like, I don't know how it was in on the transfer side, Jaime, but in developmental ed, if given a choice, a student did not want a hybrid course. They either wanted like fully face-to-face or fully online. They didn't want anything that was meeting once a week and the rest of the work done online or anything like that. It just seemed like they wanted full one way or full the other. I'm just kind of curious how your students.
Yeah. Chalice, I see your hand raised. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that our dean specifically did not want to offer any online with a synchronous component in the spring because those filled up the last and we had to cancel a lot of those. We actually ended up canceling, yeah, Dan, we ended up canceling a lot of classes and then adding some mostly fully face-to-face because that's what students picked first. And so we're in the same boat, Chris, that students really gravitated mostly, I would say, first towards the fully face-to-face, but we had very few. Wait, did we have any fully face-to-face at the start of the?
I don't think
they were all hybrid.
I think there was we were going to run a few that met twice a week, whatever. And then, but I don't think it was full time. I don't think it was.
I don't think we had any
or whatever. They were hybrid.
Right. Yeah, I think all of ours were hybrid. So about either a quarter or half time at the start of the semester or at the start of enrollment. And then as students were picking those classes, our dean added fully face-to-face classes. And that is what students were gravitating towards for sure.
Anybody else on the chat? Well, I see Tony's hand raised, and then
we had the counselors were saying that a lot of students were wanting in-person classes as opposed to being online. Now, we really don't do much hybrid in the math department, but part of the problem was classrooms that normally held 30 now held 15 because of the 6 foot. And we are still playing that for the spring right now, too. So we can only do so many sections. So some, I think, settled for online in that. And like College Ellsworth, that's basically there was only choice because they only have 15 seats for the one section in person. But we had counselors saying a lot of students wanted to go back to in person for things. And at some point, we just didn't have the seats.
So Heartland seems to be kind of the odd school out here. We are about, I guess, maybe 40% fully online. I think we have a handful of online synchronous this semester that is going to be gone for spring. The rest of them are all face-to-face, and we do not have restricted admission to the class. We're filling 30-person classes, which didn't thrill me to death, but that's the way it is. And admin is pushing us towards, they would really like a lot more online sections, but they don't want the split. They just want it fully online.
So Ted, I know you were going to speak up earlier. So you're saying.
Oh yeah, our math department surveyed everybody's course. We surveyed all of our math students in every course. So we have data showing that students want to keep it like it is. They like the remote courses. They really like the convenience. Some have to work and take care of families. But then the next highest group of students wanted to come back but they were afraid of COVID. So they're on the edge. So we don't know what to do. But then our administration said no more than 25% remote courses. So almost all of us have to come back in spring.
And Ted, for those synchronous ones, were they meeting full time? Like if it's four credits, they were meeting for 4 hours?
Yeah, they're synchronous online through Zoom, just live Zoom lessons. Yeah.
I feel like most of ours went hybrid for the synchronous. So they would only meet, like I'm only meeting 2 hours a week for my 4 credit classes. Yeah. Interesting. Anyone else want to chime into this topic of your college's future online plans as we transition to maybe a more normal semester? Jennifer, go ahead.
So we are kind of in a different situation where at the beginning, in April, we all were told you could not be on campus for fall unless you had a lab component to your course, you were developmental, or you were the top 30 enrollment. And that developmental top 30 meant that about 37, 38% of our math classes were in person this fall with capacities of 12. And watching enrollment come in last May, when they thought the vaccines were going to make the magic bullet and hey, let's open everything up and everything's going to be great, our in-person classes started to fill. And then as people realized that reluctance and this and that and the other, and it wasn't, going to end soon, then that registration halted and we saw people enrolling in our online courses. To the best of my knowledge, no one has ever really asked the students, or if they have, they haven't shared it with the chairs and coordinators about the modalities that they would prefer for fall, for spring. And Oakton has had a history of being very, very conservative with going back and shutting down and let's push online and all of this. But I think somebody somewhere has just had enough and they want us all back full-time in the classroom, pre-COVID capacities, which makes a lot of people very, very nervous. And from a union perspective, they can't, our Vice President of Academic Affairs recently this week said that they cannot force us to come back in person. And then in the next breath, the deans said, oh, but we don't want all of the adjuncts to be teaching all of the classes. So I'm hoping and trusting that you guys are going to do what's right. And so we're going to have a real problem. As everybody knows, enrollment is down everywhere. And I think we are like just over 11%, 11.8% down. And I know that if we had faculty to create additional sections, we could have. And I project that for spring and summer. That I don't know about your hiring prospects, but we're seeing applicants who aren't local at all and only want to teach online from their home in Colorado, or people who don't have qualifications, or, so we've got a unique situation of knowing that we need more classes and we don't necessarily have faculty to teach all of these in-person classes that they're demanding. Because as I'm looking at the full-time load requests come in, there are a number of people who, for one reason or another, and some of them have very valid reasons, are not comfortable going back to the classroom in a pre-COVID capacity for spring.
Yeah, we and Chalice and Catherine can correct me if I'm not phrasing it right, but we basically, there was a negotiation, right? The union negotiated agreement for spring. And part of that agreement was we could no longer have 100% of our load be online, right? So we had to have a certain percentage. I don't remember what it was, 60% or something. It was just part of our agreement. Did it go back to the
normal
language?
It's whatever the normal language is. I think
yeah,
it's
whatever the normal
online
was. Right. So
yeah, it was 60%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough. So you're feeling this pressure, Jennifer, for the department to add enrollment, but the enrollment demands are for face-to-face, and you can't get people to staff the face-to-face ones.
That's, and I'm seeing, yeah, all of that. And I'm very frustrated and I'm concerned about the safety of our students, our faculty, the community at large, and wanting to provide options for people. I'm hearing the survey results of, that indicated that students still want to be remote, and they think that there are some aspects of this that are a good thing, the ability to, do what makes them feel comfortable, and administration essentially taking that away from them by saying we're not offering that modality, or we're going to be only remote, and when I snuck in some synchronous remote into the schedule, I know that there was some hesitancy on the part of the schedulers to include that. I'm hoping that maybe I can continue to tweak the schedule a little bit. But more than anything, it's the pre-COVID capacity that has faculty very concerned.
Sure. Yeah, I know a lot of it for us, and I see your Kimberly, you can go next. A lot of it for us was like just enrollment demands, because the administration is really worried about enrollment, and the demand was for face-to-face. So they want to get enrollment up, so they're going to move us back. And then I know success data was not great either. So Kimberly, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump off this for a 3:30 meeting here for a second, but I do have a question for those of you that are going back kind of to normal room capacities. That means there can't possibly be still 6 foot distancing. So what do you do then? So then right now it works nicely in the sense that if a student has COVID or thinks they have COVID right now, since we're using 6 foot distancing, only that student has to go remote. It doesn't affect the rest of the class. But as soon as you start putting more people in the room, then every instructor is going to have a seating chart. And then once a person has COVID and they're in that class and 4 other classes, it's not just going to be that student, it's a ring of students that education is going to get disrupted for 10 to 14 days. So that's the argument that we've made with our board. One was just fiscally, even our rooms, if we put them down from 6 feet to 3 foot distancing, it didn't really increase the capacity because of the geometry of the rooms. But then talking to them about the fact of how many students that's actually going to disrupt every time somebody has COVID now, where right now it's just 1 student, versus a ring in 5 classrooms or something.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
For Heartland, it's not the ring of students. If a student comes down with COVID, and I don't know that it's happened hardly at all for us so far, but if a student comes down with COVID and we have an expectation that they were in class when they were contagious, the class goes online. You go for 14 days, you don't meet. And of course
I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you. Hi.
No.
We don't have any kind of space limitations, and we aren't doing any kind of ring isolation as far as I know either. If a student has tested positive, then that student isolates, but we are not doing large, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Kimberly, because it sounds like you were able to convince your board something that I don't know if our union and admin has tried. I don't know, because I get your logic. All I know is that those discussions don't seem to have happened, or the discussion happened and we decided we needed enrollment and didn't want to raise costs because it's expensive to have halftime.
Yeah,
Right.
what we're experiencing is that the mandate has come that we are going to 3 foot distancing, but our classrooms, the way they're set up, that doesn't really change the number of students that can be in them versus now we're at 6 foot distancing and we can have 15 in our classes that normally hold 28 or normally hold 30, but we have 28 capacity. So I'm not sure how that's going to be handled unless they bring in different furniture, because we have 2-person desks, like 2-person tables in all of our rooms.
That's ours too. There's 16 tables, so they normally hold 32 because that's our seat capacity for college level. With 6 foot distancing, it's 16. It's 1 per table. But if we go to 3 foot, it's still 16 because you can't
Yes.
put 2 at each table and still have them be 3 feet apart with how they've been spread. So yeah, so it doesn't increase the capacity fiscally. It doesn't make sense to, right now, like I run out of faculty. Like right now, we're using a lot of adjunct from the southern part of the state for our remote classes. And it's the only way we can get all of our classes covered right now. Because, I've got full-time faculty and instead of, pre-COVID, they taught, a face-to-face of 32. When we moved them all online, they went down to 25. So that already increases the need for faculty for me. And then when we brought them back on campus, now they're at 12. And so it's just like, I need twice as many faculty for that. That just fiscally doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I got to log out, but I wish I could.
No, thank you so much for coming and thanks for chiming in. Chris is at
much more productive and meaningful to me than the next thing I have to go to. So
you're at Harper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Harper. Yeah.
Yep. All right. I see you.
Yeah, thanks again. We have so far completed 0 topics yet. We're still on our first topic. So did anyone else want to contribute anything if you haven't been able to share your thoughts about this online, what your college is doing for the spring? Are you feeling pressure? So interesting. Okay. One of the topics that came up as part of that discussion, I'm not skipping to, there's 3 that are tied. So some of this is we're surveying students and they're appreciating certain modalities. So we're going to keep doing that. So I'm wondering just kind of very broadly, one of the other things was what lessons are you keeping from the pandemic? Whether it's modalities like we talked about already, or is it something new in your instruction or your department, or like, are there things that you've been forced to do that now you're like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. I think I'm going to keep doing that. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Or everybody, they voted for it because they just want to hear what other people are doing, what other people are keeping. Peter, go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you want now. Are you talking about things that we did before that we can't do, that we have stopped doing right now due to the pandemic, or things that we are adding from the pandemic?
In my mind, so it might have been a poorly worded statement. So in my mind, I was thinking of things we've done during the pandemic that we didn't do before. Okay. That now we're going to keep and think, oh, okay, I'm going to keep doing that. And I wasn't doing it before.
Okay. Well, because for me, a lot of the stuff, it was different because everything was fully online, but I already used my math lab for homework and things like that. So some of the changes weren't as big per se. And I've gone back to a lot of how I did things. The only thing that still irks me a lot is I teach a co-requisite course. And with that, I would have partner activities and things like that on occasion. And that right now has been put on hold because I just can't, I'm not allowed to do it with the social distancing.
Yeah.
And that really, to me, really hurts the course, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. Chalice, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah.
Drink.
I was just going to say that I have a lot more flexibility with what I do with my in-class time now, because I don't I don't have to have this pressure that I have to get all the lecture done, because I can be like, listen, you guys can go watch these videos that I made for all my classes over, COVID, and we can spend our time in class working more on. So it has allowed me to sort of in the moment flip my classes. I haven't flipped them all because that's not the feedback I'm hearing from students. Like, they don't want to watch the videos, but they'd rather watch the videos than not be able to do some of the review and, other things that we may not have had time for. So I'm kind of using some of those resources that I had to create to provide to students that they didn't have to provide to my fully face-to-face classes that they didn't have before. And even the ones that, even if I do lecture on whatever topic, I still post those videos and they can go back and watch them if they need it. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is more flexibility in my classroom for sure, how the time is spent.
I like that, like I don't know the phrase you use, but it's like a just spur of the moment flip. Like, well, we didn't get to what we needed to. So just so you know, you can go watch this. And it's really nice to have that in your back pocket if you need it.
Yeah, and also not just we didn't get to it, but we chose to not get to it, kind of, like they want to do this instead, or another one of these, or, whatever.
I actually had a slightly different experience. I do have some videos from the pandemic, and I have them posted on Moodle. I actually covered a topic in class that was difficult, and I told the students, if you want to revisit it, here's the video. It's the same thing. And what surprised me, it really did surprise me. There were actually a few students who came back to me and said that they actually had looked at some of that and asked me if I had more. And I've had videos for one of my classes, because we have a flipped classroom for the developmental class, and they hate the videos. I mean, they don't want to watch any videos. It's like pulling teeth. And it surprised me today when a student said, well, did you make any more? Can I use that? So,
yeah. Amy, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So the spur of the moment flip is something that definitely happens in my class. It is nice to not feel the pressure to get things done and just be able to say to them, I've never been so on time with my syllabus as I have been the last 2 semesters. Like, oh, okay, well, this is the week and this is what you're gonna have to do. The other thing is, the only online I had done significantly before the pandemic was our college algebra, and I used the Alex learning system. And so there's not a lot of production of content on my end for that. I would do some videos to go along with it, but not covering every single topic. So when the pandemic started, I was a little not sure how to do Calc 3 online and things like that. And I first focused on taking my notes I had for class and then sort of adding to it and putting in the like explanations, the solutions, which obviously takes a super long time with math. And then as an afterthought, did some videos. But it became very clear to me that many of my students, and maybe it's the topics I teach or whatever, they don't really want to read math. They're not going to sit down and look at my notes and read through them with any sort of attention. So I very quickly learned that I need to put my focus on the videos. And then I have the notes there too. And I tell them you can use one or the other, or you can use both, because obviously the videos follow the notes. But yeah, it was, I don't know why it would surprise me, but when someone said, yeah, students don't really like to read math, I'm like, yeah, I love math, and reading math is not my favorite thing either, as a matter of fact. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to add, one of the things for me is the technology. So like I've got college algebra and calc this semester, and I just use Desmos all the time, and I let students use it during tests and quizzes. And I'm like, why would I make them buy $100 calculator that's not as good? And it just, like, I'm gonna have a hard time when I'm back in the classroom. Like, do I just let them use their phones? Because there's a mobile Desmos version. I probably will, honestly, and I'll just kind of walk around and pretend I'm looking over their shoulder. I don't want to stress students out and freak them out. But it just seems ridiculous to me that you're paying $100 for this calculator that you're never going to use. The only reason why you're buying it is so teachers know you can't cheat on a test, but you still can cheat, but it's harder because there's no internet. So I love using Desmos and other online tools. And like in Calc 3, I would create a maple visual of a problem, and there's a way to share it with students so they can still interact with it. And I would give them the link and then ask them a question about it. So they click on the link, they pull up the 3-dimensional thing, they're dragging it. And like I put a point and ask for the gradient, which direction would it be? Kind of just eyeballing it, like what is the gradient? And they're able to like play around with it on their computer or on their tablet or whatever, and then answer a question. And like, I don't know, do I take tests in a computer lab now? Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do in the spring. Like that technology, I've really appreciated that. That's one of the things for me. Yeah, right, Chris. So Catherine, go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. The demand for our computer resources is going to go up. We had a computer room that we could check out on a one-time basis. Became a couple of computer rooms, then it became Chromebooks on a cart that we wheel around. The demand for that resource is going to be higher.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ted made a great point here. I don't know if everybody has the chat up here. They've been switching to OER. You know, I don't know if you want to talk to that, Ted. Like, there's so much out there now.
I've determined my students are really poor and they're not going to buy a textbook, even if they have financial aid. So I went through that when this pandemic started. I started switching over and I found fantastic resources. My gosh, OpenStax, if you want to find some good books, go there. And then there's software called My Open Math. I don't know if any of you use it, but it's free. It's all free. And I have it linked into my Brightspace LMS. And the grades transfer instantly, and it's all really nice. It's a real nice looking.
If you've looked at if you've looked at OER stuff before, like it's a different landscape now.
Yeah, yeah.
Really different landscape now.
Yeah,
and we have a lot of My Open Math where we'll, as a department, kind of meet together and work on a set and say, hey, we have this My Open Math intermediate algebra set that you can just copy. And it's we've looked at it, we've customized some stuff. You know, we're working on a Calc 2 one right now. I'm teaching it in Calc 2, and the class that I copied has some stuff. I'm like, I'm not going to do that topic, so I have to kind of edit the assignments and things. And if you like coding, you can make your own problems. It's really fun. It takes me like an hour per problem, so it's not effective, but it's fun to do once in a while.
Dan, are you doing that for Calc 2?
Oh, go ahead.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be talking to you.
Yeah.
I have 2 sections of Calc 2 in the spring.
They have ready to go courses in My Open Math, and you can just go in there. There's Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3. I'm using Calc 1 right now. I just switched to the semester. Check it out. I mean,
and they have within My Open Math in my head was just homework, but it's not anymore. Now there's entire courses with books and videos and examples and like all this stuff, and they're like all laid out for you.
Yeah,
like it's really now you got me going, Ted. Now I gotta like log in and show
it's really
the Calc 2 class.
There's just a few of us in my department. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 of us in my department, and we're trying to convince everyone else to change because they're still using Pearson and my math lab.
Right. So these are all videos, and then when you're in the examples, a lot of the examples will have or when you're in the homework. So anyway, to your point, I didn't mean to sidetrack and make it a My Open Math sales pitch, but that's one of those things that we might not have done before. But now we kind of were forced to do it, and we learned about a new thing that we didn't know was there. And yeah, that's really cool.
It's been working really well for me.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say.
Anybody else have anything that you kind of were forced to do or chose to do during the pandemic that now you really like and kind of want to keep doing it?
Yep.
Go ahead, Cindy. Yeah, jump in.
So one of the fights we've been having ongoing with our admin at Heartland is they have insisted that online means the student never has to darken your doorstep ever, including for tests. So they don't understand why we can't make a math test that the student can do on their own and it still be valid. So when we got shoved into online teaching, all instruction was forbidden to proctor tests for a semester and a half. End of spring 2020, all of summer 2020, we were forbidden to have proctored tests. Yeah, and I'm going, okay, I'm teaching, I was on sabbatical for 2020, spring 2020. So I was watching all my colleagues in chaos. But for summer, I was teaching Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. And I'm supposed to be giving my tests with no proctoring. So my knee-jerk effort was, I decided that I would make them videotape themselves explaining one problem. So they have to come, put on Zoom or put on their video and talk their way through a problem. so that I've got them on the screen telling me how to do one problem. Now, if anybody wants to experiment with this, let me tell you, I'm a slow learner. It took me like 3 semesters to figure this out. Put a time limit on how long they can talk. Okay. I had students turning in 40-minute long discussions of one calculus problem. You wouldn't think they could talk that long, but they could. So I was spending days grading this thing. So this semester I've said it has to be 5 minutes. If it's 7 or more, I don't grade it. And it works, but I find that I can really figure out what the students know and what they don't know by making them explain it to me. So it's something that I would really like to do even when in my face-to-face classes.
Has anyone done, I tried a one-on-one meeting for my final in Calc 2, and we did it, and it's like a time suck, and it was like, but it was really quick. You can really quickly ascertain whether the student has any idea what they're talking about, for sure. Has anybody else tried that? Like a live meeting? No. I like the video because you can record it and then watch it when you have time.
That's a great idea. I like
it. Yeah.
You mean live on Zoom, right?
Yeah. So we would meet. Yeah, exactly. Live on Zoom, and we would
live on Zoom.
Live on Zoom. I'd give them a question. They wouldn't know, and I'd give them a question. They'd know what type of question to expect, and then I'd it was a series question, like a convergence question, and yeah, it was really, students that might have even done the wrong thing. Like, it's clear that they knew what they were talking about, or if they're just grasping, and I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're doing. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So Cindy, did you have every student answer the same question, or was it just pick a problem that you did on paper and talk me through it? I'm just kind of curious how you what you did, like how you presented that to the student.
Yeah. Now, of course, I felt like I had to give them one of these questions on each homework assignment list leading up to the test, because I didn't feel like I could just throw it at them then. But the type of question, like the one I'm just in the process of grading right now, is tell me how to get the tangent line to x sine of pi x. Use your tangent line to approximate the value at 3/4. Explain why it's off and by how much. Give me an interval around the point where you would think that the approximation was valid. So now what I'm having, and what I need to revise on this, is they're spending 4.5 minutes telling me how to get the derivative, because of course we just finished the shortcut rules. Then they're spending about 30 seconds to 45 seconds finding the tangent line, and then they're out of their time, so they're not getting to the meat of the question. But it's that sort of thing. It's not just talking me through the problem, it's also talking me through interpreting it. But yeah, it's always the same one for the entire class. I don't want to risk making one question harder than another question between students, and it does make it grading it easier. We use Canvas, and I set up a rubric for grading that I published to them in advance. You'd think they'd know what I was looking for. Yes. And then I can just click through and go, yeah, you got it. No, you didn't. And
yeah, that makes sense. I was kind of picturing it more, here's the 7 questions on the exam. You choose number 4 and present your solution orally.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but yeah, and I like your method better.
We have about 10 minutes left. There was one other topic that was kind of tied with this, but before we move on, did anybody else have anything that you wanted to share on this one, where things that you've been doing recently that you've liked that you want to keep doing? So the next one we voted for, and sorry, Catherine, it wasn't your one you're hoping for. The next one we voted for was just about like, I mean, we call it at ECC, we call it horizontal consistency. It's about how do you keep like the same level of academic standards across multiple sections, multiple instructors. So I can share at ECC, one thing that we've done the last decade or so to kind of front load that is we've shared, you have your course outline with the objectives and all that stuff, but we've also shared, we call it an instructor file that kind of is like a more detail about here's exactly what you should cover, here's how long you should take, here's what technology you should be using. And at least on the instruction side of things, kind of tries to make clear what the expectations are. And then we've also added departmental finals for mostly algebra, right? Just algebra classes. I don't think we have any department. Well, 102 stats were supposed to, but anyway. So those are the things that I can think of that we're doing at Elgin. Does anybody have other things that you've thought about or that you would like to see or that you are doing to try to maintain that consistency across sections and across instructors? Maybe this is another one of those that like, yes, please tell me how to do that. All right, well. Amy,
Well,
jump
I can
in,
mention
please.
something.
Yeah,
Sorry.
save us here. This is dying quick.
And it's me asking what to do. One of the issues, we've had departmental finals for a long time for all our courses. But I think people were not liking it maybe for a while before the pandemic, but with the pandemic, there was no way we could have a department final because some people were using my math lab and wanted to give their final with my math lab. Others are just completely opposed to any sort of proctoring software. And so they wanted to give some unproctored final. And so every semester I've started out for the last 4 semesters, I guess, I don't think it's time we can switch back to departmental final. But can we come up with a couple of versions, in my math lab and another one, but we can't even like do the proctoring thing because of the cost. If the teacher's not using it for the whole semester, it doesn't make sense for them to then request it just for the final. It's not fair to the students, first of all. But they're not going to pay for the whole semester for the one final proctoring. And so as far as, I think you call it horizontal consistency, we have very little at this point. And part of my, I don't know, it's a concern, but part of what we have to deal with going forward is even when we're all back, I don't think our school is going to allow online classes to do tests in the test center. So that was a one way, if you don't like the online proctoring thing, they could still come to the campus test center. But I think they're saying, no, online, look, you did it fine. Online means online, they never have to come to campus. Well, then again, there's still some teachers that are not going to do the proctoring software. So going forward, I think we are going to have, and maybe this is the other webinar, but long discussions about assessments and how to do it in any consistent way and again, how do you know who's taking the final? How do you know who's taking this test? How do you feel confident in the grade you're assigning? And it's even going back to campus, I don't think it's going to be an easy solution at this point.
Yeah, that one, by the way, future plug, that one is coming up the 15th. That's next Friday, 10 o'clock. Link is on the site. I could post it in the chat here too, because that one is a hot topic for sure. Just about how do you get authentic assessment? How do you know who's doing the assessment? And then some of my concerns are like, I get those concerns, but it's kind of like for those who are stats people, like there's 2 mistakes you can make, right? So it's like a type 1 and type 2 error. You can make a mistake where people are cheating left and right and you have no idea what's happening. And then you can swing the other way and very few people are cheating, but like it's a high stress environment. You've shown you don't trust anyone. So students don't feel trusted. It's this negative environment. So they do like there's problems both ways. I know I have a philosophy and I just swing one way and I just let that mistake happen a little more than others, but That's why it's a whole webinar for sure. For sure. So but that's interesting that final was kind of what you were depending on for the horizontal consistency. Like, okay, we have this departmental final and people know what the expectations are. Amy, did you mandate what those counted in grades too? Or did you just have to get it?
I think we always said it had to be around 20%, but it's not like I collect their grades and calculations. So I really would not know what's happening, but we suggested around 20%. Yeah.
Interesting. Anybody else have any thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
That's one of the big issues we had is that, yeah, our admin does not want us sending our students to the testing center. So what Heartland has dictated is for at most 2 tests in the semester. So for my class, it's midterm and final. For most math classes, it's midterm and final. You give the students 2 time frames when you will proctor. And then if they can't make those 2 time frames, then that fraction of students can go into the testing center. So, and we do not have any proctoring software available to us. The college wasn't going to pay for it. So it's me on Zoom watching them take the test.
Yeah, we have people doing that. Yeah. Interesting. Anybody have anything else to add here? Otherwise, we've just got a few minutes left. I was going to pick off one of the next topics. Oh, the next one I think is probably the next one up is placement mandates. So we had these placement mandates that went out a couple years ago about you had to let in certain scores, right? They have these actual scores for the different tests. And then the big one for people was the GPA with the 4th year of math made you college ready. And so that was tough for a lot of people to like understand and be comfortable with. We had already done a bunch of research at ECC, and we were kind of okay with the GPA. And interestingly, I could share you our results. It's gone really well. It's been fine. And those students actually that place with their GPA do really well. They do just fine compared to other students. So I don't know if other people have you fully implemented them? Have they gone okay? Are you seeing things not work? Because a lot of that GPA thing depends on your feeder schools. So I don't know, anyone have any thoughts on the placement issue and want to comment on that? Are we reaching the end of the meeting where it's like, yeah, it's close enough to 4, Dan, just call it. Still studying it. Yeah, I would encourage you. I don't know how your IR does, how cooperative they are, but ours has been, we've got this like pattern of asking for data, and they're kind of used to the questions we ask. And so they're like, we kind of have a pattern of that, and it's not a problem to ask them for that. So I would encourage you to ask for that and just say, like, what we do is we ask for the success in the class based on how they got in there. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So like, here are all of our, entry level classes. And then we'll say, well, did they get there from this prereq or this prereq or this prereq or this placement or this placement or this placement? And you can kind of see here are the success rates. It's probably really small on your screen, but that helped us feel especially really comfortable about the GPA. We're like, oh, yes, they're doing okay. The ones that placed in there with their GPA only in the 4th year of college math. So, all right, I'm gonna let you go. I will let you go. You can't log off until I say you can, so I will let you go. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for the contribution. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for moderating this.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Cindy's taking notes, and we'll share those in case your colleagues are interested. We'll share those. We also have the recording, and as Chris noted earlier, you could watch it on YouTube and just go up like 2 times, and then it'll only be a half-hour roundtable.